Hey everybody. Today we're going to work on 9-6 notes. We're going to divide this into 2 different days. Today we're going to work on the rational equations, and tomorrow we will work on the rational inequalities. Basically, we're going to simplify the rational expressions like we did in 9-2 that you did for homework yesterday. And we're going to take it one step further and actually solve for the variable. It's basically an extra step past the simplifying that we already did. We are going to always, always, always check our answers to make sure that they work because we have a lot of denominators. And what do we know about denominators? Denominators cannot equal 0. So we have to make sure that we're not equaling 0. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one here. We've got 7 over 3 minus 3 over x minus 5 equals 19 over 12. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a common denominator for the left. So what do I need for my common denominator? I need a 3 and I need an x minus 5. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out my denominators. And the right hand side, we're just going to leave that for now. Okay, so then what? I had a 7 in the numerator on the first fraction and I had a 3 in the numerator on the second fraction. So what's missing? When I compare this denominator with this denominator, what was missing? I was missing the x minus 5. And then in the second part, when I compare this denominator with this denominator, what was missing? I was missing the 3. So the 2 pieces in green are what I needed to add in order to make the denominators equal each other. And that also keeps our fraction equal to 1, meaning we're not changing the fraction at all. Okay, then what? Then I'm going to clean up my numerators. I'm going to go ahead and distribute that 7x minus 35. Now this gets, well, this actually isn't too bad because it's just minus 9 over the 3x minus 5 equals 19 over 12. Continue to clean that up a little bit. That's 7x minus 44 over 3 times the quantity x minus 5 equals 19 over 12. So now we have fraction equals fraction. This is a proportion. Okay, when you have 2 ratios or fractions equal to each other, we call that a proportion. And we're going to solve this with cross products. So I'm going to multiply on one diagonal equals multiply on the other diagonal. So what do we get? We get 12 times 7x minus 44 equals 19 times 3 times the quantity x minus 5. Distribute. Let's see, that gives us 84x minus, a little calculator help here, 44 times 12 is 528 equals, distribute here. Let's do it this way. Let's distribute the 3 times the x minus 5 first. So we'll have 19 times 3x minus 15. Just rewriting that left side equals, now we can distribute that 19. 19 times 3 is 57x minus 19 times negative 15 is minus 285. Now let's clean up our fractions, our equations here. Let's move the x over. Let's move the 528 over. And 84x minus 57x leaves us with 27x equals negative 285 plus the 528 gives us 243. Divide that by 27 both sides and we get x equals 9. Okay. Once we have x equals 9, we want to plug it back into the original to make sure that we don't end up with a 0 in the denominator. If we look here, the only number we would have to kick out is a 5, and since we didn't get 5, we're good. You can plug it in and actually find the numbers and make sure that it truly works. Let's take a look at 2. On number 2, we're going to get a common denominator, and this time we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to do the common denominator for the whole thing. So when I factor this x squared plus x minus 6, that factors into an x plus 3 and an x minus 2. So I've got my 3 fractions here. I need an x plus 3 and I need an x minus 2 for all 3. So a little different strategy here for all 3 fractions. Now, this had a 14 up top, this one had a 10 up top, and this one was 122. The fraction on the right, this one here, is ready to go because the denominator is the same, nothing's missing. The other ones we have to figure out what's missing. If I compare those two, here I'm missing the x minus 2. When I compare these two fractions here, what am I missing? I was missing the x plus 3. So now it's cleanup time. On the left-hand side, we can go ahead and distribute that. We'll get 14x minus 28 plus, distribute again, 10x plus 30 over, now we can go ahead and put that over the same denominator, equals the 122 over that same denominator. Clean up the left-hand side, we get 24x minus, 24x plus 2 over that same denominator equals 122 over that same denominator. Now here's why getting a same denominator for both sides is nice. The denominators match. So if my denominators match, then my numerators are going to have to match. So at this point I can say that 24x plus 2 equals 122. So 24x equals 120. 120 divided by 24, how nice, is 5. Then we have to take that 5, plug it back into our denominators, and make sure we don't get 0. X plus 3 is 8, not 0. 5 minus 2 is 3, not 0. So x equals 5 is a legal choice for an answer. Okay, we can also do some word problems with this. Have a nice little chart here ready to go for our information. Hopefully remember that distance is equal to rate times time. Amanda's average speed riding her bike is 11.5 miles per hour. She takes a round trip of 20 miles. It takes her an hour and 20 minutes with the wind and 2 hours and 30 minutes against the wind. And we're going to have to answer some questions. The first thing we want to do is fill in the table. Tables are helpful to keep you organized. So her average riding speed is 11.5 miles per hour. So her rate with the wind will be 11.5 plus W, which is the rate of the wind. So the wind's going to be pushing her a little bit. Against the wind, what's going to happen? She's going to have to subtract off that wind because she's going to be going against it. It's a round trip of 40 miles. So how far does she go with? 20. She turns around and goes 20 miles against the wind. Time. With the wind, it takes her an hour and 20 minutes. You would expect it to be slower or faster, and it is. The time would be shorter. Hour and 20 minutes. Now be careful because our distance is in miles. Our rate is in miles per hour, so I need my time in terms of hours. So 1 hour and 20 minutes would be 1 hour plus 20 over 60. So that gives us 1 1/3 hours. Against the wind, it takes her 2 hours and 30 minutes. So that's going to be 2.5 hours going against the wind. How long does it take to complete the trip? So sometimes you can use this last row here as a total. It takes her 1 1/3 plus the 2.5. 1 1/3 is really 1 2/6. 2 1/2 is really 2 3/6. So it takes her a total of 3 hours and 5 6. So 3 and 5, 6 hours to complete that trip. Write an expression for Amanda's time with the wind. So if we know that distance is equal to rate times time, here we're writing an expression for the time. So that is going to be the distance divided by the rate. So the distance with the wind is 20 miles an hour. The rate with the wind is 11.5 plus W. Write an expression for her time against the wind. Again, she's going a distance of 20 miles, but now she's going against the wind, so her rate there is 11.5 minus W. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to determine the speed of the wind. So we can write that rational equation. It would be the 20 over 11.5 plus W plus the 20 over 11.5 minus W. That's going to equal her total time, and our total time was the 3 and 5, 6 hours. So that's how they want you to do it using those rational expressions. However, this one's much easier to do without involving the rational expressions. So since we're all about taking the easier route, we're going to solve it without the rational expressions. We know that distance is equal to rate times time. So if I look at the first column with the wind, the 11.5 plus W, that's my rate, times my time, which was 1 1/3. Mixing decimals and fractions here, it's kind of weird. So there's my rate, that's equal to my distance of 20. So if I take the 1 1/3, which is 1.3 repeating, I need to get that decimal in my calculator. So 1 divided by 3, 1 plus 1/3. Okay, so I got my 1.3 repeating in my calculator. And then what? Then we're going to distribute that. Okay, so when I multiply that by 11.5, I get 15.33 repeating plus 1 1/3. W is equal to 20. So now I can take 20 minus the 15.3 repeating. We're not rounding anything. We're keeping all that precision in there. So now I've got 1 1/3 W. Actually, I'm going to rewrite that as 4/3 will be easier. 4/3 W equals 4 2/3, which is 14/3. So I have 4/3 W equals 14/3. Multiply that by 3/4, and we get W equals, the 3's cancel, 14 over 4, which reduces to 7 over 2, which is 3.5 miles per hour for the wind speed. And that's much easier than combining our two rational expressions here, like they kind of wanted us to do. So we're all about easier, so we're just going to do distance times rate equals time. And then, yeah, or you could have chosen the second line if you want to do against the wind, and you could have done distance equals rate times time there as well, and you will end up with 3.5 there too. All right, next up, we're painting a house. This is called a work problem. And I'm going to put this problem on the next video. Sorry, it's only one problem. It'll be short, promise. Thanks.